I just want to recap from the last podcast because it's Memorial Day and I got a lot of fireworks and a lot of stuff in the background. And don't want to get anybody confused. Uh, Transits are not, they're not the same. They're not the same planets, uh, locations of your birth. It's hard to explain, but I'll give it a shot. So again, uh, uh, like if your natal moon is in Cancer, natal moon in Cancer in 2 degrees, uh, and your birthday, uh, you look up your birthday, and it could be of this year, it could be in a different sign, and that's a transit. Transit are are different than when you were born. When you're born, it's natal that doesn't move. Transits constantly move. They're the time of location today, the past, and the future. So that's where astrologers kind of predict things kind of crazy, and sometimes, and if they're good and they know their interpretations of the past, then they're probably just they'll be good at what they do and they'll just try to predict stuff. But unfortunately, astrologers today, they don't take the time to explain to people what their natal planets mean, because their natal planets to me mean more than the transits. Transits are okay, you know. Oh, what's going to happen to me when I'm 51? Well, let's look at the transits. So the astrologer, what he or she does is pick up a book called the Emphyseris and look at the time when you're 51 that year and see the transits of that year and see the big ones and how they master your natal, how they affect your natal ones. And sometimes they don't affect your natal ones. They just, you know, um, well, I mean, it just depends on the astrologer, I guess. You know, whether it is the astrologer likes to do stuff like that or not. That's just it. Learn the emphasis, learn the degrees. The degrees have different interpretations. Like if you go back to our friend Watson TV and see that he was born January 19th, 1970. Let's just look. And um, yeah, so we look at Watson's natal chart. He is Capricorn down here. It's the symbol. He's an Earth sign. It's green. A lot of different websites don't do the different earth signs, or like the colorization. They just put different signs and just the signs. But Capricorn is an earth sign and it's green. And he is natal Capricorn in the fifth house, and in his 29 degree, because he's a Capricorn and because he's a cardinal sign. So remember, cardinal signs are Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, and Aries. Those are cardinal signs. The old interpretation is that 29 is called an anaritic degree, kind of importance, but that importance depends upon what the person does in this life, whether or not he or she accepts uh, the path that they are taking. But there's importance of 29 degrees. Okay, so taking from that, um, learn the thesaurus. I'm going to do a couple of podcasts on those different that book. We're going to go back and forth in that book, and yeah, we're gonna do a lot with the thesaurus and the different degrees and interpretations and stuff like that. So this podcast is supposed to be about the maturity houses. Maturity houses is is going to be. Let me see here. Let me bring it up. Um, maturity houses. Maturity houses are going to be five is Leo, 6 is Virgo, 7 is Libra, and 8 is Scorpio. Those four houses are considered the maturity zone. Okay. So those houses are owned by those signs. Like Leo is owned by the fifth, and those are those characteristics of the fifth. Virgo owns the sixth, Libra owns the seventh, Scorpio owns the eighth. Okay, fine. But remember, like I said, you could be any sign. That's why the time and location is important. You could be any sign and be in the fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth house as you're born, when you're born. So the maturity houses are those houses of Leo in the fifth, Virgo in the sixth, and Libra in the seventh, and Scorpio in the eighth. Those four houses, if you are a Pisces and you're born in the fifth house or seventh house or sixth house or fifth house, that zone, that part of this chart is called the maturity zone. The maturity zone represents maturity, your life, your time of life, how your life unfolds is when you're older. You're going to be older soul than in proximity than the other zones, which is career and self. So maturity, it's like you're kind of almost not necessarily a late bloomer, but as you age and as you grow older, your life unfolds. So the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth houses, if you're a different sign, but you're born in the fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth, you could be an Aries born in the fifth house, an Aries born in the sixth house, an Aries born in the seventh house, or an Aries born in the eighth house. You're an Aries that coincides with the characteristics of an Aries or the characteristics of those fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, which house they're born under. But that zone of that chart represents maturity. You're you're an Aries that's gonna your life will unfold when you're older. When you're older, and you'll be an older soul. Your your maturity will gradually be quicker than others. Um, there's no good or bad in astrology. There's no there's no there's no good or bad in it. It's 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 all self-realization. So um though that is extremely hard extremely important to understand. There's no bit good or bad in astrology. You can't you can't look at like you can't say like you look at Adolf Hitler's chart and say, "Oh, he was a bad soul because of this, that, or the other thing in it." Or you can't look at Gandhi's and say, "Oh, he was a good soul because this, that, and the other thing is in it, is in his." No, is it depending upon the nature of the person, but where the person uh, is born in the sign of the chart, or where what the person is the flow of the energy that they are given in this lifetime, and that importance will show in the chart. It won't show the free will of the person. The free will is depending upon what the person wants to do, but the chart will explain the path, the life path of the individual that owns the chart. So, like I said, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth houses. If you're a Taurus and you're born in the fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth house, you'll have a long life. Your maturity will blossom when you get older. The things of older age is more reflective in your life, and things will happen when as you grow older. Now, if that person doesn't, you know, choose to do evil, or do terrible things or something like that, it's and their life is shortened by their actions, it's not reflective of the chart. It's free will. Doesn't necessarily mean the person is going to grow old, but that person will be an older soul than the other houses. So again, I'll tell you, I'll explain it to you in another way. And maybe this will help. If you're a Gemini, Gemini is the third house, but Gemini, if you're born and you look at your natal chart, you put in the time and location, you find out that you were born when you're in the eighth house or the seventh house, or if you were born in the sixth house or the fifth house, those four houses, that's maturity. That's when you'll be a Gemini, and you'll blossom at an older age. Basically, in an older age, it doesn't, nobody knows how old you'll live, but you'll, as you grow older, your life unfolds. So, I hope this was clear. I really do. I'm having some problems with my background. It's Memorial Day and there's a lot of fireworks. Um, uh, learn astrology. It's self realization. It's a lot of fun. You could you could see a lot in your life. Um, learn the transits. Learn your natal planets. Learn learn how the transits affect your natal planets. Learn how um, certain things in your life, you'll compare certain things, time references in people's lives, like their Saturn return when they're 28, 29, Uranus opposition when you're 42 or 43, another Saturn returns when you're 56 or 57. You have a Uranus return if you're in your 80s. Um, the changes in life when things occur like that. The slower planets usually are the slower planets are Uranus, Neptune, and Jupiter. No, I'm sorry, not Jupiter. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They're extremely slow, um, uh, and they affect roughly a period of time in an individual's life when uh, longer periods of time. So, in other words, let's just say you have injunction that's like Uranus is going to be in your conjunct to your natal sun. Let's just say it could last for about 2 years. So let's just say I'm just giving you a thing, an example. Um, uh, Astrologer could look you yourself could look at your own natal chart, and you could cough it up and see when transiting Uranus will be on your natal sun. You just by looking or seeing the degrees, or when like if let's just say you're an older Taurus, Uranus is going to be on your natal sun, roughly in the fall time. So, what does that consist with? Well, it consists with it says that Uranus is very quick and electrical, and things happen really quickly. It has to do with communications and stuff like that. Maybe you're looking for a job in communications. No, maybe you'll get one in the full time by looking up the emphasis and matching up the degrees of transiting Uranus and your natal Uranus. If your natal Uranus is 28, when is transiting Uranus going to be? Well, you go to the emphasis and you would look that up. It could be 2025, 2026. In 2024, you'll learn that transiting Uranus will be 23. So you give 2024, give it another year, transiting Uranus will be 28 by 2025, probably in the summer. You see how that works? So you're looking at returns, you're looking at conjunctions, you're looking at how the slower planets affect your natal planets, and yeah, it's a good read. You could read things like that. So let's just say, let's just say, um, your natal sun is in the maturity houses. Okay, so your your flave your energy for, and you're that older Taurus of 28 degrees. You're older Taurus, 28 degrees. Maybe you're in the 6th or 7th house. You're in the maturity zone. And Uranus is going to be on your sun, transiting Uranus, because it moves around the chart. Transiting Uranus will be 28 degrees in Taurus by 2025 in the summertime. Then you turn around and you could say, well, maybe I'll meet somebody, because Uranus will be like a sudden change. But because your natal sun is in the 7th or 8th, or I'm sorry, maybe 6th or 7th, because it's in the 6th or 7th, your sun is there. Maybe you'll meet somebody, because the 6th and 7th have to do with relations with people. The 6th has to do with friends and gatherings and family. The 7th is relationships. As the sun goes into Libra, it's relationships. It's what people, marriage. that sort of thing. Yeah. So, um, I hope that makes sense. Um, I'll give you another example. I'll give you another example. Um, okay. So let's say you're Aquarius. Let's say you're Aquarius. Aquarius natal. Natal sun is in Aquarius. You're born in February. All right. So let's say you're born, when you look up your natal chart, you're born in the eighth house. You're Aquarius born in the eighth house. Okay. That means you're in the maturity zone, but you hold the characteristics of a Scorpio. Scorpio is good in research. They're good with finances. They're good with inheritance, and you're sort of in that realm as an Aquarius. So then your life unfolds gradually into the eighth house's energy. Seeing it all the time. Seeing it all the time. That's how you could see how other people are in that sense of how important it is to see where you are in the natal chart. Um, you're Aquarius. You gather people. You could bring people for humanity, humanitarian. To go with humanitarian interests. They gather people, and you're in the eighth house. Maybe you're a good researcher because you hold the energy of a researcher, and maybe gradually you as time goes by, because you're in the maturity zone, your life will unfold in the eighth house's energy as an Aquarius. So that's how it you could see yourself in your own chart. Um, you could be Aquarius in the sixth, seventh, eighth house, or the fifth house, of any other different house, and be an Aquarius that has the sub energy of the that house that you're born in. Um, yeah. So, trying to think, like somebody like Jennifer Lawrence. Here's a good example. Jennifer Lawrence, great actress. Leo. She's a Leo. I don't know if you remember years ago. Um, she won some award. I forgot. I don't know. Right before she won the award, she announced that she wanted to she wanted every woman to have equal pay, and uh, uh, you know be equally paid as those as the male actors. I don't know if you guys remember that, but apparently, back then That was a big splash. That was a big hit. She just took off. It was like on every newspaper that she said that, and it was the Me Too movement. I got no qualms over it. I'm just saying that was like a big hit in her life. It was a big splash. I think I'm just assuming. I think the North Node was probably in Leo. I think that was roughly 2000. Oh boy, I'm not sure. Um, could have been when she was announcing that. Could have been in 2000. What was it? 2005 or six or something. I mean, either way, her natal sun is a Leo. She's a Leo in the ninth house of Sag. So she's a ninth house Sag. She holds the energies of justice, of teaching people things, etc., etc. But when she announced that she wanted equal pay for women, she was a bigger hit. She was a bigger hit than her acting back then. She casted out this enormous energy out there, and that's Sag. That's Sag. So she's a Leo in the ninth house of Sag. And Sag, now, mind you, is career. It's career. It's a career zone. I know we're talking about maturity zone, but she was in the career zone. There's three types of zones. There's selfish. The stereotype is selfish, but it's not like that. It was just me making a mistake. It's self zone, it's maturity zone, and it's career zone. It's all three have four houses in it. So the first through fourth is self, fifth through eighth is maturity, ninth through 12th is career. So if you're in the self zone, the reflection of when you're born and you're whatever sign you are, if you're born between the first through the fourth houses, the reflection of the events that happen to you will unfold your life, will be more of an unfolding of your life. So you could be a Capricorn. You could be a Capricorn in the first through fourth house, you know, and you'll be in the self zone as a Capricorn. If you're in fifth through eighth, you're in a maturity zone as a Capricorn. Your life will unfold when you're older. When you're a Capricorn between ninth and 12th, you've got an excellent career. You're making track, you're making headway, and you're a Capricorn in the career zone. That's how that works. So when you see that within yourself, you could see how your life will unfold. You could see how things will happen to you by just knowing the natal chart, seeing what has to be said, and you taking the time to learning certain interpretations and just reading a couple of books or reading stuff through the internet. There's several different sites out there that do planetary interpretations that are really excellent, really superb. Astro King is one of them, and he writes excellent stuff. Uh, you gotta see your natal chart for yourself, and how you want to um, see your life in that reflection. Well, maybe you're good. Maybe you're good. Maybe you're good. You're a Capricorn. You got a good career. So maybe by looking at the natal chart, if you're a Capricorn in the 10th house, you're like a double Capricorn. You're a Capricorn on top of the 10th house. Maybe you work in government and you find yourself as an excellent type of person who is good in their career. So that would say that. Well, in self, you can be a Capricorn in the first through fourth houses if you're born in the first, second, third, or fourth house as a Capricorn. Maybe your career is okay, but maybe your reflections of of your creative ability it, about yourself comes out better. So, like Elvis was a Capricorn in the second house, so his talents was a reflection of his self. Everything that happened to him because he was so famous. He's a Capricorn in the second house, and that has similar traits as of Oprah. Oprah is born in this in I think she's Aquarius, born in the second house as well. She's an Aquarius, so second house for Oprah and Elvis is deals with money and material things, and obviously they were rich, but their energy is to carry out of what type of energy that they have is a reflection of themselves. So they constantly were putting themselves out there, and that's how that works. That their energy of themselves, their what has happened to them. Elvis was a, a brother of a twin that died. Oprah claimed that she was abused as a child. That was all out there, and it had to do with the self. And so they were natal sons. They're natal sons in the second house. That's why I encourage you to learn astrology and to learn your own natal sign. And I'm trying to do my best. And I hope somebody out there could share my ideas and thoughts and try to encourage others. I'm trying to do the best I can to encourage people just to be self-aware of their own natal charts and not to be ripped off by other astrologers out there that charge 150 or 200 an hour, which they don't share as half of the beauty of one's natal chart. And one's natal chart is extraordinary to learn. There's so many different questions, there's so many different interpretations. Once you see yourself, it's like a reflective um, water kind of thing where you see yourself unfold right uh, as time goes by. There is something to astrology, and it does matter of what somebody brings to the table. You could learn so much about astrology. And the transits there are no negative transits, there are no positive transits. What they are is like a compass, and they tell you what's going to happen at certain times of a person's life. So, for instance, if Pluto, knowing that it's a transformation planet, it singly casts this energy of fast pacing transformation. If your natal Pluto is on your MC, I'll give you this one. When Whitney Houston did Star Spangled Banner in the Super Bowl in the early '90s, she was considered to be America's sweetheart. She was just out of this planet. I mean, it was despite her singing career. She was the Star Spangled Banner on the Super Bowl in the early '90s. Nobody could do her wrong. She sang it like beat it out like anything. So she broke so many barriers by just singing that national anthem. Now, by the time 2000 came rolling around, there were rumors of drug use, and there was videos and et cetera, et cetera. The day, the day she did the Diane Sawyer interview, the day she did the Diane Sawyer interview in early 2000s, I think it was 2000 actually, Pluto, transiting Pluto, was moving on her MC. And Diana Sawyer says, "Well, do you do any drugs?" And she says, "No, drugs are, crack is whack, and I don't do crack," or stuff like that with a husky voice. Her whole image changed over. So that transiting Pluto was on her MC at the time. Now I could go into it. I could really I you could go back and find the date of that interview. Look it up on the thesaurus and then match the date of when Pluto was that degree to her natal chart. And her natal chart was in Sag, and her MC was in Sag, and transiting Pluto was over her MC. I know that for a fact, and one day I'm going to go through it in a different podcast. But I'm just using that as an example, as to say, you can see how big transformations happen in people's lives with astrology. Another classic example is right now is poor Kanye West. Kanye West is going through a Uranus opposition, which is now roughly ending. He got a divorce. As horrible as that is, the transiting, if you looked at it in general, if you looked at it this way, Uranus opposition is when your natal Uranus is here at a certain degree, and transiting Uranus when you're 43, 42, goes the total opposite like this. It's at 180 degrees. It's 360 degrees around. So if you're going halfway, it's 180. So when that usually happens when you're 42, 43, usually 42, 43. What is that? Well, what that is basically your midlife crisis. And that's the age when people get divorces. Their minds go on high octane. They get more self-aware, or whatever it is. They they just become more energetic, and sometimes it's like more of awakening. Now, this is this is what is very interesting. Now, starting now, it's Kim Kardashian's Uranus opposition. So Kanye had one, and it's ending, and now his divorce is ending. But now it's Kim's. Kim is having a Uranus opposition. And if you looked at Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, I think it was roughly 2 years ago. Um, I think it was his Uranus opposition. I think his natal Uranus was in the eighth. It was in the eighth house. And I think it was, I know it was in his eighth house, but it was, or his transiting Uranus was in the eighth. I think his name, well, why don't we just look? Um, give it a shot. He basically had horrible Uranus opposition. Um, uh, Floyd Mayweather, boxer, is 45 years old now. So it was roughly 2 years ago. I was correct. Okay. So if you looked, and I'm just trying to cough up the natal chart here. He's a great guy. Uh, uh, very interesting, very smart. Mayweather. If you looked at his natal chart, here's a classic example. He's just Floyd fifth degree. Trying to bring. Oh, here it is. So we don't have the time. I was right. We don't have the time of his birth, but that's okay because he's 45 years old now. Now, 2 years ago, he had transiting in his opposition, the sister sign of Taurus and is Scorpio. So Scorpio has his natal Uranus in Scorpio. Now, what actually happened to Floyd Mayweather? I'll tell you, because it was in Scorpio, he had several deaths. The poor guy had several deaths in his family. It was horrible. I really feel bad for him. Sometimes, it was just horrible for the guy. His Uranus opposition, because his natal Uranus was in uh, what do you call it? It was in Scorpio. He had all these deaths in his family, and here's a classic example right here. Here it is. His search. And look, I think he had something like 2 or 3. And this was 2 years ago. This was his Uranus opposition. So here it is. So Floyd Mayweather Jr. dead in 22. His ex-girlfriend died. And um, uh, and that was 2022. He had horrible. That was just horrible. I think his father passed away too. His ex passed away, and his father, his father passed away too. His ex and his father, and he had Uranus in Scorpio. Yeah. So that was Uranus opposition. So, I mean, like I said, nobody knows what would eventually happen, but you can get a feel of how energy is in other people's lives just by looking at a natal chart and what's going on in a person's life. If you take a look at the transiting planets, you could see when the queen had problems with her husband before her husband obviously passed away, and he was declining. She had transiting Pluto over at AC, the Queen Elizabeth. So her status was changing. Transiting Pluto over AC is a reflection of the mask of yourself, but the Pluto transforms, and her AC, it was Pluto was coming down to her AC. Her husband was deteriorating. I think she probably was deteriorating too, and we just didn't hear much about it because I would assume that the monarchy is probably very secretive in that retrospect. But either way, um, somebody like um, uh, Putin, Putin will have um, next year. No, I, I think I think this year, Putin will have uh, South Node on his natal sun, and that's not a good indication of anything, especially if you heard rumors of his health declining. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You got to be a detective. You got to see what's happening in that person's house at what's happening in that person's life at that time. Maybe that person wants a divorce, but then you turn around and you say, well, they're going through a Uranus opposition. Well, when am I going to get a divorce? Well, I look up the thesaurus. You're in you could be in the process now, or you're in the middle of a Uranus opposition, and maybe you got another year to go. Um, yeah, you looked at the thesaurus and you could see those things. Um, uh, you could see a lot. Um, there are tons and tons of interpretations. If you have like Jupiter over your MC, you put in Jupiter over your MC, you'll find different interpretations, but basically the same feel. Let's just say Jupiter over your MC. Now, I know for that as a fact that Jupiter over your MC means that your career is in the jump. Jupiter conjunct MC. So you look at that, MC being midhaven. And you get different interpretations. Astrology King is a favorite of mine. I like that guy. He's really nice. Astrology.com is good. And you get different interpretations, but roughly you get the same feel. Uh, um, Tumblr, yeah, it's interesting. Um, uh, Cafe Astrology, I think I don't see it here, but Cafe Astrology is good. And you'll get like Jupiter conjunct MC. You just click on it and you read the type of feel, what that will be for that person at that time. So let's just say that person's looking for promotion and wants to know when to get promotion sooner or later. So so you could see roughly it's going to happen, say, next year. Well, what time next year? When next year? Well, it's going to be because of the degrees. We find that your midhaven is 23, and Jupiter will be over your midhaven at 23 degrees, approximately February of next year, in the last month. Oh, so roughly that'll probably be your promotion because Jupiter ends, Jupiter's good luck. The MC is career works. That's how it works. Thousands. There's thousands because the different interpretations, it could go on and on and on. I mean, Mercury on your natal sun could bring you money. You could be very chatty because Mercury stands for things that do communications. I hope you learn a lot. I encourage you to go back and do a couple of watch a couple of videos because there's so much to learn about astrology. Uh, there's so many good and you could see yourself and be more aware of what's going on and uh, it's a lot of it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You could learn so much about it. And I feel like it's been so uh, what's the word? It's been so uh, abused and misinterpreted that you could see so much and see yourself by these interpretations, and they've been going on for thousands of years. And a lot of astrologers are trying to keep those interpretations the way they are, and some of them are trying to change them. And that's the problem. Learn astrology. Liz Green, um, uh, Robert Hand. There's so many good people out there. And the problem is they're dying out. So their books are great. Their books are wonderful. But we definitely need, fresh new blood out there to to keep it alive. Yeah, to keep it alive. Um, yeah, I don't know. Trying really hard to create this podcast and to put out positive energy and to help other people out as much as I can. Um, I don't know if anybody's out there listening, but my chat is always open. Chat is open in YouTube. You could always chat with me in YouTube, Twitch, um, and you can message me at whenever you feel like it. I do read my messages, and I really thank everybody who watches my podcast. And I'm trying to do the best I can. Um, yeah, maybe I'll try and get some guests going. If I could get a few guests to appear. Um, yeah. Um, Today's Memorial Day, so I got a lot of people having fireworks in the back, and that's going on. Um, I hope out people out there. If you have any questions or you need help, you can always email me or leave a comment on my YouTube. I do watch out for them. Um, I'm sort of winded. I did an hour. Um, and maybe what I'll do is try to set up some videos. I could show you an interesting video by YouTube in just 1 second about interpretations. If you just give me 1 second, this is Michael Imperioli. He's an actor. He Aries, and he's got a Taurus moon. He's got a Taurus moon. Very nice guy. If you look at his Instagram account, he puts these meditations out there. He tries to help people with meditation. Very nice guy. He was an actor. He's still an actor. Played in a lot of movies. Played in roughly Sopranos. He won a Golden Globe uh, for his um acting in the Emmy. Oh, he won an Emmy, right? So he won an Emmy. He did this. He did this. What do you call it? Um, he did this thing, and it's kind of popular way back. And he said that I guess he was a little too happy at the time. And this video right here, he has um he's taken home the Emmy for playing on the drama series of The Sopranos. I know for a fact, and I looked up this date. I found the date like November 16th, 2013. There he is. He wins the Emmy. And apparently he comes out and he says every once in a while, he comes out and says, "Oh, I took the Emmy and I threw it in a waste basket, and my wife picked it up and all this." And that the day after, and this is James Gandolfini, and he won the Emmy. Is great talent. I like him a lot. I think he's pretty decent. He had, when he announced this, I know for a fact, he had this took the Emmy home. He actually had transiting Mercury on his natal sun at that day. He and of course it just worked out for him that way. He's a really decent guy. So he does these meditations on Instagram. They're nice. They're really good. And those meditations, he tries to bring out the beauty in different areas to help people. He has a natal moon in Taurus, and usually that's the case of people who have natal moons in Taurus, that they try to bring out beauty um, in different areas and to help people. Uh, that's how they are. Uh, Great guy, decent guy. Had transiting Mercury on his natal sun. That day, that day, he very interesting. I shouldn't put a I shouldn't put that on my podcast titles. Maybe I'll do a podcast in regards to it. Excellent guy. I like him a lot. I highly recommend him. If you find him on Instagram, his meditations are really nice. He's a really decent guy. Um, yeah. Um, that's why I said, you could see interesting things when you learn astrology and somebody else's chart and what actually has happened. And there's no bad or good in it, because the different transits affect people differently. They just affect people differently. Um, I hope you could, tell your friends about my podcast. I'm trying really hard to um, bring it to light. If you have any questions or anything like that, you could always message me. I'm always here. Um, You could also do not just people's natal charts, but you also can do places. Like, God forbid, a terrible thing happens in a certain area of the world. You could look that up and to see what was going on, what transits were going on at that time, at that location. It's called honorary astrology, the place of a certain event you could do. It just you just put the time and location of the event and what is actually happening. Um, I just try to encourage people to learn their own natal charts. And this podcast was about maturity houses, because the maturity houses were a certain zone. And that zone of the maturity houses had to do with the houses of the fifth house, the sixth house, the seventh house, and the eighth house. Those four houses, the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, those four houses, if you're born in those four houses, that's a maturity zone. That's where your life will unfold. Uh, you'll be an old soul, and you'll as you grow older, your life unfolds naturally. Um, yeah, yeah. And the other the two zones, it's the self. The self is the first, the second, the third, the fourth. Those are self. They the events in your life will blossom your personality, and as certain events in your life will occur, we will go through maturity. Maturity is fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, and the career is ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Those are careers. So if you're a Taurus, you're Taurus, you own the second house. But if you're a Taurus in the 10th house or the 11th house or the 12th house or the ninth house, and you're a Taurus, you have a strong career. And that's where your life unfolds through your career. You'll find that through comparison or comparing your own life with actually what you do. So you'll hold the Taurus traits, and you'll have a good career in those, like a Taurus holding uh, a strong career in the Taurus as a Taurus. It goes for any sign. I'm just using that as an example. Yeah, you can see a lot. So I feel so tired. um, um, there's so much to learn. You could see, like, let's just say you have a special celebrity, and they come on the news. Maybe they passed away or something like that. You could see certain actions, certain transits in their chart. When you learn, Ray Liotta passed away recently, right? He had transiting Pluto, trining his MC. Um, yeah. So a lot of people think that Pluto is the symbol of death, but yet it's the symbol of death. It doesn't necessarily mean death literally. It could mean death in per se certain category.
Um, um, yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I feel kind of winded. If you got any answer questions, you could always message me or leave me a comment. Thank you. I hope you guys have a good night.